Well, thanks for coming again, Lee. Lee Perreira, you are a beast of a human. I mean that in all the nicest ways. Shit, man, you played with Buddy Guy, James Bay. You play in it looks like 300 shows a year, sometimes more. Mm-hmm. And in your spare time, you run 16 marathons in 16 days. So how does that all come together? Tell me about that.
Steve Jobs says you don't know how the dots connect until you can look back. And for me, it's easy to connect back. But anyway, it really started with me with just giving back. And it had to do with personal experience. So, my grandfather passed from Alzheimer, or actually dementia, but he was in like a home and, unfortunately was abused and like all kinds of stuff. And that's my experience, right? And then I had some close friends that they'd bring their mom to see me play gigs. And then one day they came and they weren't without their mom. And I said, "Where's Jenny at?" They said we had to finally put her in a home. And so then I just started going to that home and playing. And so I would just go donate my time for an hour, on my way to a gig. Yeah. And I'd play for an hour, and I started seeing how I play Signed, Sealed, Delivered, and this guy in the corner is like tapping his toe all of a sudden, and so like that kind of happened. And then through other people I met, the owners of Source Wine Room, they were working with a foundation called Chrysalis, which is driving out domestic violence, and I grew up with that with my single alcoholic mom, and saw things that I shouldn't have seen growing up, and so that connected with me. So I started doing the same thing, started donating my time to them, and then so I started donating my time to several different places, including Arizona Cancer Foundation for Children, and in my world, I had just finished reading Goggins' first book, and I was like, I should run, and I had run. So you take that, and then I released an album in 2018, and I just had this idea to promote the release, to run the Rock and Roll Marathon. And I was like, well, I should run the Rock and Roll Marathon and then perform on the main stage after I run. I'm like, that sounds great. I had run one marathon before.
That sounds like death to me.
Yeah, I don't know why, and it took a lot of convincing, a lot of emails and phone calls to the booking company. I think it was Entertainment Solutions that booked the entertainment for Rock and Roll Marathon. And they had an office in Scottsdale, and I emailed and I called. And then I actually went down to the office one day and knocked on the door. And they gave me the opportunity, and I did that. And then, fast forward, that was in January 2018. By 2019, I had this crazy idea. I was like, I want to run from Phoenix to Burbank, California, and I did some math and I broke it down, and I was like, if I just run a marathon a day for 16 days in a row, I'll get to California, and I did it to benefit the charities or foundations that I was already donating my time to, singing songs for an hour here or there. And so that's just kind of how it went.
I love you said something. I think you said I'm going to attribute this to you. If you hadn't said it, pretend like you did. I think you said something like, you can quantify donations, but you can't quantify inspiration.
That's true.
So
yeah.
Just being out there and giving your time. You mentioned you ran back to California. That's where you were born?
Yeah, Long Beach, California.
Long Beach. So was that the music scene? What got you into the music? Because I think I've seen a picture of you when you were 8, 9, 10, in that range.
Yeah.
And were you still in Long Beach? And what was it about the scene that was juicing you up and saying, I got to put a guitar in my hand?
So it was really just born from my mom. I was born and raised in Long Beach, California, as was my mom. And at 15, like I said, my mom was an active alcoholic. She's 8 years sober now, which is super cool. We have a great relationship. But at 15, I moved from California to Arizona. So basically, California was mom, stepdad, sister. Arizona was dad, stepmom, brother. But growing up, for the first, I'm like 10 years older than my sister. So for the first 8, 9 years with me and my mom, it was just me and my mom. And she was just super into music, specifically 80s hair rock and roll, spandex, Aquanet hairspray. But that was very right? Like lead singer, lead guitar player driven, Aerosmith, Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, all those bands was that kind of vibe. And that's all my mom was about, really. My mom wasn't like into sports, wasn't in this, like she just loved music. And so I wanted to play guitar from a little kid. Back then they didn't have little guitars. So I remember I finally convinced my mom to let me get a guitar lesson. I have no idea how old I was, but all I know is I went to a guitar lesson at a guitar store, and they put in my hand what seemed like the biggest acoustic guitar ever known to man, and like my hand could barely reach the end of it. And the guy literally told my mom, like, bring him back in a year or two and see if he's bigger, Fast forward, I got a mail order guitar that my grandparents got me for like birthday or Christmas. It was called the Terminator. It was black. It had a speaker in the guitar, and it ran on a 9-volt battery. And I chunked on that until middle school, and around 12, 13, I met some kids who played like stuff like Iron Man and Nirvana and Black Sabbath, and so then they just started teaching me about guitar and tab, and I started playing from there. And then when I moved out here to Arizona when I was 15, so we're like 3 years into my guitar playing journey. I didn't know anybody. Like, I was between sophomore, junior year, so it was a pretty difficult transition. I literally was like a weird long-haired kid wearing cardigan sweaters and jeans in Arizona, sitting under a tree reading the Edgar Allan Poe book, playing guitar in my bedroom, and I knew nobody, So my junior year was pretty weird, and then I just, I kept going from there.
But you knew by 12 you were in. Like by 12, 13, you knew it was something was in there.
And I think I knew it before then, because when I first wanted to get the guitar lesson, I was about it. He told me I wasn't big enough. Yeah.
Was your mom going through some of her struggles during that first period?
Oh yeah.
Do you think some of that and the love that you saw her have for music maybe inside made you go, well, because some of those guys I'm sure were idols, Bon Jovi, or to her.
Yeah.
Right. And from a little kid perspective, going, I want to be that for mom too. Mm-hmm. Was that? Do you think that played any part in grabbing that first guitar or wanting to pursue that?
I would assume so. I've actually never consciously thought that. But I mean, yeah, that was my mom's everything, and my mom was basically my only thing. Like, besides my mom, I had her parents in my life, and super grateful for that, because it was a very dysfunctional life that I had as a child, But once a week, I saw my grandparents, and they were functional. And they, I got to see what love was between two people, and they were a positive influence in my life. And basically, like, my dad wasn't even in my life until I was about 12, because he was using, and him and my mom had split before, like, I was even a toddler, But so my grandfather was kind of like my father.
So you've had, substance in your family, substance abuse and addictions throughout most of your childhood, and even filtered into some adulthood with your brother.
Absolutely, yeah.
What is that like? Do you feel helpless? Do you feel? Are you just on the sidelines watching?
You go through. I guess it depends who you are. For me, there was a time that I tried to be active with my mom and my brother, in the sense of, like, don't do that, do this. Just read this book, just go for this walk, just stay consistent.
Were you always the angel on the shoulder, or were they ever influencing you to kind of come in and join them with what was going on?
Definitely not my mom. My mom was kind of more like on her own journey, and she was pretty deep into it, and yeah, my brother kind of invited me in, and I would say, like, I dabbled at times, I've had some time to sit and reflect on it, you know, and I've definitely made my mistakes. I mean, the first marathon I ever ran was in prison for a DUI that I got just a few months after my brother passed. And so like, I think I didn't go as deep as my brother and my mom and my dad. But I also think I got like extremely lucky. You know, I tended to go out into the water and then pull myself back. You know, I kind of knew that like,
there's a shark out there if I stay in.
yes,
Yeah.
very, very much so, you know, and I always had this sense
That's
of like,
pretty amazing for someone how old are you during this period?
man, I would say in my, I don't remember really when, in my late teens, early 20s, I definitely started having some substance abuse issues, where it was like taking over, you know, my life. But I always like hid it, you know. I kind of always felt like I was okay because, like, you know, my dad wasn't even in my life. My mom, I saw some wild stuff that a child shouldn't see. You know, my brother is like on heroin, living on the streets. You know, me, I was like, I'm still paying my bills though, right? Like I'm still showing up to work. You know, like, but I mean, I was drinking or using or smoking every day. You know, it was every day. I just wasn't as bad as the people that I surrounded myself with. So I felt like I didn't have a problem, or I didn't want to admit that I had a problem. But I definitely have an addictive personality, and I need to be careful about who I hang out with and where I hang out and when I hang out, you know. I think part of my success is creating a successful circle of people around me.
I think that's something that most people that I've talked to don't spend a lot of time thinking about. And so maybe it's a blessing that's come out of some of the hardness. I mean, some of this I'm sure is very painful. We barely scratched the surface, but the blessing out of that is it allowed you to say, who's around me, and you almost have to vet them, right? You almost have to, including new people, when new folks want to come into your life, you almost have to go through this process. And I find myself doing this constantly now for different reasons, but knowing that who you surround yourself with is either who you become, or they either drag you down or they're pulling you up, or they're with you on the same level, right? And for those that drag you down, you have to have that vetting process where you say, well, I like you, you're a good dude, good lady, but there's a few boxes here that if you check these boxes, you can't be in the circle because that's part of my vetting process, and I know that I'm going to come down there with you.
Yeah.
If I don't do that. But for you to consciously do that at 20 or 20, I mean, I was trying to be a rock star living out of a van, you know, and you're going, I got to realize who I'm surrounding myself with.
And I mean, like, you know, it just, I don't know, it felt like innate, and I failed, you know, miserably, you know, for a long time. And even as I came into more consciousness of it, you know, I found it to still be painful to like separate from the people that, like, you know, I'm not going to say that they're not good friends, you know, like, some of those people picked me up from jail, you know, or were there when my car broke down, or there when I went through a breakup of a relationship or something, you know. But, you know, at the end of the day, when my life started to shift, you know, I couldn't be like, hey, my gig's done, let's hang out by the campfire and drink whiskey till the sun comes up and have an unproductive day the next day and not be present for people. I think one of the most beautiful gifts I've gotten is that people can know that they can rely on me now, right? So like I used to say, like, oh, I'm not a bad person, you know, but, you know, there were birthdays I missed or things that happened because I was doing other things, you know, where now, like, if my sister's struggling, she's called me, you know, one, because she knows that she can and that I might give her some more insight, or I might just be supporting and loving, but also that I'm available, that, like, you know, if it's 9 a.m. in the morning, or if it's, you know, 6 o'clock at night or in the middle of the afternoon, like, she could call me and I could pick up the phone and I'm going to say, like, hey, what's up, you know?
Yeah, you'll be there.
I'll be there.
Yeah. And you're in a profession, I mean, you pay the bills playing music. You play almost every day, right?
Yeah, about 5 days a week.
5 days a week.
Yeah.
That's a profession that leans towards addiction, drugs, alcohol. I mean, it just it favors that, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do mentally now to prepare yourself? Like, and you're gonna go in that spot. Now I know you play. I've looked at some of the places you play, and they are more higher class. I mean, you're not playing at the Dirty Dog,
Yeah.
right? So I guess you can kind of vet them that way.
Yeah.
But do you run yourself through some mental exercises every gig, or are you at a point now where you've tasted enough of it that you just know you don't like the taste anymore, and so you're good?
I think clearly I have an addictive personality. I'm an addict. I used to say, just for fun, like if there was a pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream in the freezer, I'm going to eat the whole pint, that's kind of my personality. And, so I wouldn't say like I'm 100% sober, if I was at a wedding, or some family, I might have a glass of wine, but like I'm very picky as to when and where I may choose to indulge, which is, less than a few times a year.
Yeah.
And so like, but there was that transition too, two things. One, the type of gig I used to play, and then, how I'm received. So like, let's say 10 years ago, I'm playing at Copper Blues in downtown Phoenix, and I'm playing with my band, and the gig is from, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. and I'm at a poppin' bar, and, it's shots and stuff like that. And I walk in that place and everybody knows me, and do you want a shot of Jameson or whatever it was, And it's funny, over time, now I'm more apt to play the solo gig at Andaz Resort. That's from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. So I'm finishing when I used to start, and I walk in and they're like, hey, you want a cold brew? But there was a transition, and I felt extremely uncomfortable transitioning when I would walk in a place and they'd say, hey, Lee, you Jameson on the rocks?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, no, no, thank you.
Did you almost feel like you were letting them down? Which is crazy to say because this is your life, it's your decisions. But when you get these expectations, I went through the same thing, in the band days. Is like you said, you walk into a room and you are the party. They know that when you get there, that's the party, and then you almost feel like you're letting people down, which is kind of crazy to say.
And it's just like, it's expectations that you have set to, and so it's just, you have to navigate through it, you have to create a new normal. And, what's super cool is, the drummer that I always play with now, Buddy Banks, he lives his life sober randomly. The bass player, Dylan Paul Thomas, I think he's been sober now for almost a year, made a conscious decision to just try to be a better version of himself and eliminate alcohol. And so it's cool when like you start to transition and also be open about it. There's so much power in speaking about it. It reminds yourself what you're about, and it also opens the door to connect to other people, whether they're already on that path and you can have a connection with them that helps secure your path, or you inspire somebody to also just explore what that is. Like I live a vegan lifestyle, I live mostly sober, I live whatever, but like I'm not trying to push that on anybody. Everybody's got their own thing, and I have. It's a mathematical equation, right? Like of what works for you and what works for me, and it's not the same for all of us, And so for me, it's just kind of trying to figure out like what works for me, what helps me, what inspires me. And as I share my story, hopefully it inspires other people. But my process may not be your process.
Totally. Yeah. That's what makes us humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there ever, I always think of musicians, pro musicians, as like this massive funnel, and we all jump in when we're, 15, 16, 12, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then slowly that funnel starts to lose guys as they get older. There's bills to pay. There's, wives or kids or whatever happens in life that takes over that. And clearly that hasn't taken over for you. So by the time you get to the bottom of that funnel, there's very few dudes left. Most of them, you've seen them at multi-platinum records and on TV, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you stay in that funnel and don't be enticed? You're not enticed to go outside of the funnel and go, this is fun, but let me go try something else and pay the bills a different way, and I'll just keep music on the side as a hobby?
I think there's multiple things. I mean, I have some other side hustles, you know.
Tell me one of them.
Day trading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. How long have you been doing that?
Since the pandemic. So
Okay.
when that happened and I lost all work, I was like, you know, what am I going to do now? You know, and so then I just started on the journey of learning, whether it was running to California, and then that becoming a nonprofit, or I guess just playing music to begin with, or some of the other like interesting things that I've done. It all just started with like I felt energetically connected. Like even reaching out to Lincoln, right? It's so funny. Like how I learned about Instagram, right? It's so funny. So like how I learned about trading was a woman hit me up through like a third party app about playing a birthday party for her husband. This is in the middle of like when COVID first happened, everything shut down, and she's like, "Would you be open to like coming?" Setting up in the corner of our house and just playing while we like eat dinner, and it's just gonna be me, my wife, and our kid. It's gonna be for his birthday. I'm like, sure, you know, I got no work, sure. And
That sounds like something, by the way, that could have ended up on Dateline. I'm just saying. You got the husband and wife in the corner, and Lee's in the guitar in the other corner. Anyway, keep going. Clearly, it worked out. You're sitting here today.
Well, what I typically do is I just like to learn about people. You know, it makes me feel more connected to them. So like, I just Instagram searched like her name and his name and stuff, and I found them, and he was a successful day trader in the forex industry. I never even heard of that. You know, never even heard of it. And I was like, wow, like I got no work. What's this? Whatever. She didn't end up booking me. Maybe that's why I'm still alive. Okay. But that stuck in my head. I felt energetically connected to it. Months later, I asked my fiance, I said, do you think it's weird if I just reach out to this dude and be like, make him like a Shark Tank offer and just be like, hey, I don't know about Forex, but I'm a musician. There's no work for musicians right now. I need to figure out something else to pay bills. Can I give you $1,000 and 10% of any money I make for the next, I don't know, 2 years? And like, what, could you let me shadow you, whatever? Like, and she was like, yeah, that'd be kind of weird. You know? And I was like, cool, I'm going to do it anyway. And so I sent him a message, and he replied kindly and said, I don't teach, but here's a friend who's thinking about putting out a course. And so I just began on this journey of learning, and you know, same thing. And, you know, now I've met some really cool people in the industry that are just want to help people. You know, I'm part of one group in particular called Trader Society. There's a guy named Derek Vandy who actually lives here in Arizona randomly. So I've just been learning from him, you know. But same thing, like when I first had the idea to run to California, I was looking for a sponsor, specifically one that could loan us a car, because at the time me and my fiance both had old Chevys, and both 8 cylinders, and we're gonna be a lot of driving back and forth, you know, for this run to California. And I think like Sanderson Lincoln's Instagram page liked a post of mine, and I was like, I'm just gonna send them a message. You know, maybe they have like, this is my thought. I was like, maybe they have a wrapped like Sanderson Lincoln car, and we could just drive it for these
Promo.
2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, whatever. And so again, like I sent an Instagram message. They said, hey, here's the number to this guy named Patrick at Sanderson. This is who you need to talk to. Call him. I called him, left him a message, called him, left him a message, went down to Sanderson Lincoln, wasn't there. I thought like weeks had gone by, like, you know, whatever. And then one day Patrick called. Like, I think it was like 3 to 4 weeks, you know. And he just said, well, what do you need, you know? And I told him about the car, and he said, all right, so I think we could do that. And he's like, what else? You know, he covered gas, he covered some hotels. And he's like, I just have one question. He's like, do you think you'll make it? And I said, absolutely. And he said, then we got you.
Wow.
And now we both drive Lincolns.
That's correct. Myself as well.
Yes.
And Patrick's just a good dude. I mean,
Dude.
I could see him. I could see that conversation unfolding. There's a connection there.
And that was before I'd ever even like shook his hand or met him. You know, that was the first conversation, and you know, put us in the car and hooked us up. And you know, in my fiance's phone, he's Patrick, last name Angel.
Wow.
Yeah, just because he's just been so kind.
And there's a friendship that, I met you, we were hanging out, getting ready to hang with Jimmy Vaughn.
Yeah.
And that's when we first met.
Yep.
And Patrick made that happen too. And you can just tell, just watching you two, talk, that he really thinks highly of you. And there's a bond there that started with an Instagram hangout. So the moral of the story, kids, is if you think it, do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
What do you have to lose, right?
Exactly. Like I feel like all of the greatest things in my life were because I asked. I asked. So, Buddy Guy was coming to town. He was playing at Marquee Theater. I knew somebody who knew somebody who knew like the owner of Marquee Theater, and Marquee Theater had put out a thing of like, hey, we're looking for an opener for Buddy Guy. Who should we have open? And tons of people are throwing their name in the hat. Other people are recommending people. And this woman, Ann Maroney, who does booking in town, she let them know, like, hey, you should have Lee play, And they're like, Lee's not even blues, I'm like, it's only a 25-minute set. Like, I could definitely play some blues. I have songs that are blues infused, as I say. And so we got the gig, right? But because I asked, and I pushed for it. And then leading up to it, I was like, man, like, especially with a blues legend, like, it's just a little bit more accepted that like somebody would sit in on like a blues set, And so I kept playing it in my head, like, I'd love to jam with him on stage. Like, when am I going to have this opportunity, And so I just kept thinking about like I wanted this to happen. And then when the day came, we opened up for him. We got a standing ovation. I had a 4-piece band, drums, bass, another guitar player, and me. And we did our thing. And then as my band's breaking down right before Buddy goes on, the guitar tech for Buddy had been side staged, getting the guitars ready for Buddy. And so before I broke down like my pedal board and amp, I said, hey, his name was Chris, super nice guy. And I said, hey, what do you think the chances are that maybe I could sit in with Buddy? The first 2 rows of Marquee Theater are like all my friends and family. They'll lose their freaking mind. And he said, a better chance than you may think. He's like, we need to ask Max, who's his manager. So we find Max, a large white man with a Chicago Cubs jersey, and so we asked, and he kind of looked at me and said, nobody sits in with Buddy Guy that he doesn't know. And I said, okay. I said, you think maybe I could just meet him and like thank him for the opening slot and whatever? And he kind of hesitated and just like, come with me. And the picture I'm painting, he wasn't very friendly.
Yeah.
And so I follow him.
Feel it.
I can follow him to the dressing room, and he opens the door and he says, you wait out here. So I'm standing outside the dressing room. A few minutes go by, some people leave. Max opens the door, and I'm just standing there, and he said, are you going to come in? I'm not till you tell me, And so I come in, it's just me, Max, and Buddy. Buddy's sitting down drinking a coffee mug, and Buddy invites me. He says, sit down, and I think he's 78 at the time, and I think so. And anyway, so I go to sit down, and I thank him. I'm like, hey, thank you so much for the opportunity. And immediately he's like, nah, none of that, And it just unfolded perfectly, I guess. He just said, where are you from? And I said, originally from Long Beach, California. And then he said, John the Hooker from Long Beach, California. And I said, that's crazy. I said, I didn't know that. I said, I saw John the Hooker when he was 92 at Celebrity Theater. I said, and the only song that he stood up for was Boogie Chillin'. And immediately Buddy goes, Boogie Chillin's the first song I ever learned on the guitar. And in that moment, I just said, Buddy, the first 2 rows of this theater are my friends and family. I said, you think there's any way you let me sit in on a song? And he just is quiet, and then he goes, I ain't give a shit. Let's do it. He said, I got a 90-minute set. At 60 minutes, you be on the side stage, I'll call you out.
Wow.
But again, I asked.
Yeah.
And I asked even after Max told me no.
Yeah. And that's a living legend at that time, a living legend, right?
But Buddy's still alive.
But like in his prime, like when you talk about Buddy Guy,
Yeah.
you see him from like age 55 to 75. You said he was 78.
Yeah.
Like that's the good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that soul came out during that period.
Yeah.
And then so you go up on stage, you do a number.
Yeah.
Remember what it was?
No, because what was so funny is like as I like thought about this the weeks leading up to it, and like if this was gonna unfold, how would it unfold, and whatever. There was one moment a few days before where you ever been stressed out and you like stress sweat, and so I just had this thought. I was like, man, what if he actually do get to get on stage, and what if he's like, all right, let's do it, and I don't know what key the song's in. And like I just fail miserably in front of thousands of people, and then I just removed the thought because I literally started stress sweating. This wasn't even like at the theater, right? This is days before, but I'm like stress sweating over thoughts, and so what was super cool is after we played, but before I got to meet Buddy and ask him, as Buddy's band was kind of setting up as we're tearing down. Dang, his name just left me. But the keyboard player, super nice guy, was super complimentary. He said, hey, man, he's like, you guys were great. I said, thank you so much, He's like, no, man. He's like, we toured the world. He's like, we had lots of people open for us. He's like, you guys were great. And I said, well, thank you so much, So that moment happened. After I meet Buddy, then 60 minutes go by. I'm standing on the side of the stage. He calls me out. I'm standing next to the keyboard player.
Were you able to pass the message to the first two rows that 60 minutes from now?
Yes.
Okay.
So I actually went and watched the first 45 minutes with my fiance and my family and stuff. And then at 45 minutes, I went back and tuned up and got ready. And but I turned to the keyboard player right before we start the song. And I said, hey, man, what key is this next song in? And he literally laughs. He goes, man, we ain't got no set list. Buddy just plays and we just go wherever he goes. Wow. And I said, shit.
Oh, shit.
Quickly, I figured out it was in the key of A. And he sang a couple verses, so I had plenty of time to like feel comfy before. He literally just said, and there's a video of it if you Google or YouTube Lee Perreira and Buddy Guy, there'll be this video. And as he introduces me to take my solo, he literally just says, well, if you're going to play that thing, now be the time.
And you played.
And I played.
Well done.
Yeah.
It's because you asked.
It's because I asked.
Yeah. And you also, I think part of it too is your spirit comes out. I think that's an unknown. You can't quantify it. You mentioned that, not being able to quantify certain things. That's one thing you can't quantify is people that are soulful or just people that are in tune, I guess, to themselves and the world can feel that spirit. And when you approach something and sometimes there's an ask with no necessary outcome or explore with no preconceived expectation of what might happen. Like when you reach out to the Forex guy, you've got something you hope for, and you know that the worst thing that could happen is no response at all. And then you probably would have just moved on to the next ask.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you partner that with also just being so giving, and when someone asks you, your answer, I think, you could tell me if I'm off the wall here, your answer is yes.
Typically,
most of the time.
Yeah. If I'm available and I can make it happen, I try to make it happen.
Yeah, so like we talked about how we met, and we haven't spoken on the phone since then. And I saw one of your postings. It was about, I think you have an upcoming marathon I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I saw that. I said, well, that'd be really cool to just highlight, Lee and get that word out there a little bit more. And so I sent you a message. And I don't remember the exact timestamp, but it was fairly quick where you just said, yep, this sounds great. With no, what is this, first of all? I kind of remember you, probably kind of don't. What am I walking into? I don't have any idea. Just, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because you never know what comes out of it, whether it's buying a car or coming to a podcast, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's a spirit that takes you places.
I think you have to explore and know that not everything's going to be a home run. I think so many people only want to do something if they know this or that, but like I feel like experience and relationships are the most important thing, you know. That I think that's where we grow the most, you know. It's through experiencing things, talking about things, meeting new people, you know, and like, you know, not every single person that you're like, hey, let me go to lunch with this person and see what they're about is going to be your 20-year friend.
100%.
You know, but like, how would you know if you don't, you know?
And that's also not really the goal, right? The goal is that journey. Like what you might not be 20-year friends, but you might take one little piece away and go, well, thank God that encounter happened, because whatever I took from that, regardless if I ever see or talk to that person again, hopefully it departed something to them, and I definitely took something away. And it, you know, I'll make a rock, paper, scissors analogy. Journey always beats destination. Always. You know, it's about the road there. It's, you know, a lot of times you get there, and I see this all the time. We're in the financial services industry, and you see people chasing finances, you know, and chasing the next thing and the next house and the next car. And they get to that destination, they turn around and go, oh shit, this is not what I thought it was going to do for me. You know, it feels good for a minute sometimes. Sometimes it's catastrophically bad. But it's never what they thought it was going to be, that destination. And so then you go, well, did you waste the whole journey because you were just grinding so hard to get to that destination that you look back and go, God, I don't really remember the journey. And for me, it's been a couple of years maybe that I finally have switched that on in my head, where this isn't about, I think COVID helped me switch that on, because we got to spend a lot of time together as a family. You know, we weren't going in offices anymore. Everyone got real close-knit real fast. And then all of a sudden it was, well, that journey is where it's at. It's what happens on the day-to-day with people that you run into or that you purposely be around. And whatever happens at the end of that, if you can pull from the journey, it almost doesn't matter what the destination is. I mean, the destination is the same for all of us eventually, you know, 6 feet under. But if we can enjoy the journey on the way.
I've been trying to flip that too, you know.
Seems like you got a pretty good handle on it.
I think it's continual, you know. There's a friend that I've made. His name's Cody, and you know, we talk about it, and the thing that I like to say is like, every day is day one, you know. Every day is day one, and we have to put in the work every single day, because you know, to elevate, you have to be able to stand on yesterday, you know. And so, but then I'm guilty, definitely, of being lost in the grind, you know. But you know, if you're present, there will be signs, you know. And for me, I know that like balance is one that I've had to work on, and especially before I was in love, you know, I'd play 10 gigs a week. You know, I would just play music 7 days a week. Why not? If I was available and you're gonna pay me money to go sing songs, then let's do it, you know. But now, like, I have somebody I want to spend time with, you know. And so
that's fiance that became wife.
She's not wife yet.
We've going to be.
We've been engaged for a while. We've bought a house. We've sold a house. We've bought another house. We've been together for 8 years, so she's definitely the one.
That's awesome. And that's is Serenity?
Yeah,
her name?
Yeah. And yeah. So, but you know, so like one of the signs is, you know, my dad's parents are older, and you know, I go visit them, and there's like a treatment that like I've introduced them to. This guy comes over and works on them and stuff, and so I go over there usually like once or twice a month. And one of the times within the last like couple of months, my grandma, and I've been trying to consciously be more balanced, consciously be more proud of where I've come from, and from that Terminator guitar to being on stage with Buddy Guy to raising almost $60,000. Every penny of it's gone to the foundations I've run for since 2019, running over 1,000 miles, you know, for charity. And but my grandma said, you know, like, but you know, I could think to myself like, well, I haven't won a Grammy, right? Or I haven't had a big hit, or different things, right? But you know, one of the times it was over, my grandma said, you know, she's like, you did it. And I said, I didn't know what she was talking about. She said, you did it. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you're a rock star. And I was just like, what? You know, grandma, you know, whatever. She's like, no. She's like, I remember a 17-year-old kid that dropped out of high school and said, I'm not going to school. I don't need school. I'm going to play guitar. I'm going to make it. I'm gonna pay my bill. This is what I'm gonna do. She's like, how many years now? I said, 15. She said, you've been doing it for 15 years. She's like, you did it. You're successful, you know? And then it made me really think, you know? Because I feel like with a driven personality, at least for me, like I accomplished this, I'm on to the next thing. I accomplished this, I'm on the next thing, you know? And I don't really like sit back and think like, damn, I've come far, you know? In a lot of different aspects of my life, you know? And sometimes I'm guilty of just like thinking about what's next or what I haven't accomplished or the aspect of my life that still needs work. And that's why like every day is day one to me. And I don't win every day, so I don't want to pretend that I am David Goggins or I am Cam Hanes or one of these people that are about it. I am.
I bet there's a few days they don't win too.
Yeah,
right?
maybe. I feel like I'm still transitioning, you know. I feel like I could still be better, and I think that that's a great place to be.
Yeah. We could always be better. I think for me it was changing the why. So you're going for, you know, when I was in bands back in the early days, it was always get that first song on the radio and get signed. Back when get signed meant something, right?
Yeah.
But that was it, and it was a constant pursuit of that, and that was in my head. And so you were always driving towards that. Every show, it was a numbers game. It was, there was 220 people there last time. Let's see what it is this time. You know, there was 280, and if there was 180, it was a failure. And you know, you try to quantify what success means. And when you don't, and it affects the journey, because then when you're writing songs, at least for me, when I would write songs, it would be, what does the radio want to hear? What do I think is going to play big? Instead of bringing it from here out, I was bringing it from here in and then trying to spit it back out. And that's a horrible way to create anything, because all you're doing is regurgitating what's already out there in the ether, right? So that switch flipped to a few years ago when I started to write songs without caring what anybody thought about them. You know, the first song that I think I ever wrote that was any good after 25 years of writing tunes happened a couple years ago. And it was because my why was different. It was, all I want is to write what I feel about my wife. That's it. And I had a bad dream that she was gone. And so I started writing this really sad song, you know, like, oh, you're gone. You know, what happens when your significant other leaves? Yeah. And then I went, I woke up and I went, nope, it ain't going to come out that way, because she's so much. I love her so much. She's made my life. She's turned my life around in quite a few ways. This is going to be a good song. It's not going to drag it's not going to drag her, me, or anyone else down with it. So I just flipped that to say, you could be gone, and thank God I'm getting the second chance with you, because in my dream you were gone a little bit, right? And I'm going to make it worth, you know, God's effort to give me a second try. And that song just came, it flowed. And then the next one was for my daughter, and it was a similar situation. And the next one was for my son. And, you know, now you walk around and my wife is humming one of the songs. That's it. That's better than any radio station I could hear it on, and better than any record deal that could be put in front of me, is, you know, that my kid gets to swear one time, and it's because there's a swear word in Daddy's song that he wrote, and he's singing it around the house. That's it. That why totally changed. And that's, to me now, now I'm a successful musician. And if I said that in a room full of successful musicians, I would probably get laughed at. But that my definition of success changed. And it was no longer make a hit record. It was make something that affects the people around me in a positive way, and brings joy or value or something to me and somebody else, even if it's just one person. Yeah. It totally changed.
I think that's massive, and I think that's so cool. You know, and what's funny is I'm super interested, and I'm not like super on top of the world, and I try actually not to be. But I know either Ed Sheeran has a new album coming out, or maybe it's already out. I should probably look for it. But I just remember I caught like a blurb of him talking about it, and I guess he had been working on an album for a while. And then a bunch of stuff happened. I'm pretty sure like he lost a really close friend and some different stuff. And he said for the first time, he just wrote an album about how he felt in his life right now, and not about what does the radio want to hear. So like I just caught that little thing, and I was just like, ooh, like
Yeah, it's even more powerful than that. Even though that's powerful, but there's one song which is his best known song off that album.
did it come out already? Is it out?
The song came. He released a single called "Eyes Closed."
Okay.
And he had written that song. It was supposed to go on the collab album before.
Okay.
But he said there was no heart in it. He said we wrote it, and it didn't mean it was about, to him at the time, it was about breaking up with a girl. Well, he's in love with this girl, and he has been for quite some time. He goes, so it meant nothing to me. So I didn't release it. And then he lost his friend, and he go, all of a sudden that song became about my friend, and I see him in the bars with me, and now I don't see that anymore. And so that song has been sitting around for several years. It's a number one hit, but it only became a number one hit because it actually meant something. I mean, it's crazy to think that.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that. But that's also the only way I ever want to do it anymore, because the other way is completely hollow, right?
It is.
Because you get to the destination, you turn around and you go, well, shit. I have a number one single and my kid's not singing it with me. That's hollow.
Yeah.
Even though my kid sings all Ed Sheeran songs. So I'm not saying those aren't good songs. Well, we've been talking for quite some time, but I want to talk about 16 and 16 real quick. So I want to get the word out there, because you've got something coming up, right?
Yep.
Tell me about that. 16 by 16 Inc. is...
my nonprofit is 16 by 16. The website is www.16x16inc.org. Donations are live. It is a 501c3, so you donate, you'll get emailed a receipt. You can write it off. 100% of the money I raise, besides whatever the percentage is that the credit card company takes when you donate, but everything I receive is given. This year, my charity is going to be benefiting the America's Mighty Warriors, americasmightywarriors.org. It's run by a woman named Debbie Lee. She's a Gold Star mom, meaning that she lost her son in action. Mark Lee was actually the first Navy SEAL killed in action over in Iraq. And then she started this foundation to not only help soldiers come back, and get the help they need. She has a program to help with PTSD that involves hyperbaric chambers for 40 days in a row that's shown to help unlock some of the traumatic areas of the brain. But she has a few other programs. So what I do is I run crazy long distances to raise money and awareness for the foundations that I run for. 3 years in a row, I ran 16 marathons in 16 days. The first year, I literally ran from Phoenix to California. The second year was COVID, and so I pivoted and did 16 marathons in 16 days in 16 different Arizona cities. That was year 2.
Back-to-back days?
Yeah.
So this is 450-ish
miles.
Yeah. In 16 days.
In 16 consecutive days.
Is there a spot there? Is like day 10 the hardest? Have you identified, like, there's a time where you just want to stop, I'm sure?
Every day, usually.
Every day?
Yeah, every day, usually.
I mean, people train all year long to do one marathon.
Yeah. I think one of the main differences is, and I've always wondered, but it's yet to happen, right? I've only ever done something like this for a foundation.
For somebody else.
Yes. So the reason, the why that you just talked about. I've never run an ultra marathon if it wasn't for charity. One day I probably will, but it hasn't happened yet. So then the third year, to make it more difficult, I did it in August. So I did the 16 marathons in a row from August 1st to August 16th. Obviously, it was really hot. And
most people don't go outside in that time period, in case you're not from Arizona, right?
Yes. But and then I've always wanted to run 100 miles. So in the midst of the journey, and you can look on YouTube, there's some videos that talk about some stuff. In year 1, day 12, I had to reroute myself. This was on my way to California. I had to reroute myself through the San Bernardino Mountains. And I ended up doing like 45 miles in 13 hours on day 12 in a row on my way to California. And when that specific day happened, it unlocked what's possible, And I started learning more about Goggins, and I started learning more about Cam Hanes and ultra marathon runners and Courtney Dauwalter and all these people who are just savages in that world. And so I always want to do 100. And so last year I pivoted. I benefited the Buckeye VFW. They needed $5,000 for an egress door and a handicap ramp. We ended up raising $15,000. But I tried to do 100 miles in 24 hours while also doing the 4 mountains in the valley. So South Mountain, North Mountain, Camelback Mountain, and Piestewa Peak. I did all 4 mountains, and I got 81 miles in before I bowed out. And so this year I'm trying to do the same thing again, but I need to get that 100. And just for, my own personal whatever, 3 days after I did the 81, I went out and I ran 19 miles just to say, like, I did.
You got to the 100.
Yeah, but I need to get that 100 in one shot, so I'll be doing it again.
You're tackling the tops. You're going over these mountains as part of the 100-mile process?
Yeah, so like South Mountain, I kind of start in this parking lot, and then I kind of run to like one of the peaks. South Mountain is such like a kind of a long range, but like Camelback, North Mountain, Piestewa, like I go to like the actual peak because it's more of just like a direct trail to the peak. I love what I do. I love the challenge that it personally gives me. There's mental growth that comes from it selfishly, but to be able to give back. There's just no better feeling, there just really isn't whether I was playing music in the Alzheimer home or at the hospital, kids with cancer and their families and stuff, one, it feels so amazing to be able to have something to offer, and to feel that giving back, to feel some sense of relief from other people that are struggling because of something that you're doing, inspiring people, like, man, I freaked out, bro. Like the first year I ran the 16 marathons, like this was just some crazy idea. I don't know, Centers and Lincoln sponsoring us now. Like we got this stuff going on, and it was just this crazy thing, I came back and like I had strangers show up to gigs talking to me about how much I inspired them. I had, this person bring me a book that some woman in another state, she saw me doing this for charity and finished writing this book that she had been procrastinating for years, but she's inspired by. And so like at first, like I freaked out because I had been playing music for however long, at that time, over a decade for a living. That's just for a living. I've been playing music for almost 30 years of my life, and I did this one thing, quote unquote, and had this massive impact, and I was like, am I supposed to play music? What am I supposed to do with my life? Like it really made me question like what I was supposed to do in my life. And I came to terms with the fact that I'm passionate and I love music and I'm gonna play music no matter if I have a side hustle or not. Like this is what I love to do. And even just like recently, I was talking to some musicians, and I'm super blessed I get to play with the best of the best, And I was talking to this drummer, Dawel, who's super respected in the community, and I'm getting to play with some gigs with him upcoming, and we were just talking. I was like, man, like, even when I play like a club gig with my band, and like the next day, like I'll text a group text, and I'll just be like, I'm so grateful, like I get to play with people that tour the world, and they want to play with me. A long time ago, I did a CD release with my favorite musicians as my band during that time, and one of them told me, I said I always wanted to be respected amongst my peers, like that was important to me. And he said, everybody you asked to be in your band. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what'd they say? And I said, they all said yes. He's like, every one of them? Not even one said no? And I said, everybody said yes. And he's like, that's your answer, man. Yeah. So like I feel super blessed that I'm in a position where people respect me as a human. They respect what I've done for the community. They respect me as a musician. People want to work with me. People want to play with me. They enjoy it. And to me, that's confirmation that I'm on the right path.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're an inspiring dude.
Thank you, man.
We haven't talked about Serenity a lot, but if you only got to say one thing to her, and this is the last thing she heard, what would it be?
Serenity, you are the most beautiful and inspiring and thoughtful person I've ever known. And I wouldn't have started this nonprofit and accomplished the things in my life that people know me for and respect me for if it wasn't for you in my life. You know, you talk about that circle, and you're a product of the people that you surround yourselves by. And I'm around her more than anybody else. And since I've been around her more than anybody else, my life has done nothing but ascend. And that doesn't mean that you don't have setbacks or you don't have failures, right? Because when you are trying to be better, you're going to fail. And if you're not failing, then you're not shooting high enough, right? Like, failure is a good thing. You know, I definitely wouldn't be the person that I am. You know, she's helped me so much with just communication, you know. Again, let's be real and transparent, right? And mention something that doesn't get talked about a lot. You know, like, I just started going to therapy, you know, for my childhood. As I got sobered up, more memories came from my childhood than I remembered before. You know, there's some traumatic memories that I've had, and I've had them for years, but more came. But, you know, without her support, without her love, without her understanding, her ability to I have a good friend named Chad Gregory, and in one of the years of the marathons, he ran like a leg with me, and he said, asked her, what's the most difficult part? And she said, trying to see what he needs right now. So I'm in the thick of running marathons or ultra marathons, and at some moments I'm like, I'm a beast, I can go forever. You know, other moments I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? Why am I here? I want to stop. You know, so my energy and my mood can be all over the place. You know, and she's actively searching for, like, who should she be for me in this moment? And you know, that's a skill. To you know, maybe I'm rude in that moment. You know, I'm beat up, I'm tired, I'm 62 miles into something, and you know, I snap at her. You know, like, a human reaction might be to be like, psh, you know, get your own water, bro.
Yeah.
You talk to me like that, you know. But instead, you know, kind, lets it go, understands that I'm in a different place at this time. You know, that's not the person that I am. That's so mature, and that's so beyond. And I like to say, she taught me by loving me. You know, she taught me by the example that she set forth, and I've seen her set that example forth within her own family too. You know, but she loves me that same way, and I'm so grateful for that.
That just speaks of a long, fulfilling relationship.
Yeah, man.
In the future.
Yeah,
dude. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. So you came without any preconceived notions.
Oh yes.
This is old school, but we want to write you a check for your foundation.
Are you serious?
And if you need us to change it to a digital version, we can do that too.
Oh,
I know that's
my
old
God.
school, but yeah, we want to watch you and support you any way we can. I think I'm excited to see where this goes. I mean,
dude,
your trajectory is definitely up.
Sweet. This is gonna
Awesome.
go right to the veterans, man.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah,
brother.
dude. Thank you so much.
Had a good time.
Yeah,
All right.
I honored. So thank you for having me.
Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Acrylic Financial Incorporated is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed by those on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Acrylic Financial. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance, and some guests may have been paid a fee to be interviewed for this show.